Good afternoon, HCC students. Thank you once again for joining Life Hacking today. We are excited that we have Dr. Desmond Lewis here to present to us virtual etiquette. And before we get started, I would like to just share a little information about Dr. Lewis. Dr. Desmond Lewis is the Dean of College Readiness at Houston Community College. With 25 years of higher education experience, Dr. Lewis has extensive knowledge in the areas of developmental education, accelerated learning program design, English, history, ESOL, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Lewis is committed to student success and equity. As such, he is a fellow of the New Leader Academy at the University of Michigan that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion in conjunction with the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education. In addition, he has completed the University of California at Berkeley's The Innovation Organization Seminar, received diversity and inclusion training from Cornell University's ILR workshop, and serves as Houston Community College's Quality Enhanced Plan co-chair. He is also a facilitator with the Charles A. Dana Center at the University of Texas at Austin for its Foci series. Dr. Lewis aspires to impact higher education reform and developmental education reform by advancing research on co-requisite design and other learning approaches for marginalized populations. He has authored and contributed to several developmental educational composition publications with Cengage Publishing, and he is dedicated to service and working tirelessly to help students, faculty, and staff achieve their goals and positively impact the community. Dr. Lewis also holds a doctorate in community college leadership from Ferris State University. I welcome you, Dr. Lewis. Once again, thank you so much. Welcome, and I hand the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Franklin. And hello to all the students and all the participants here today. Now, I've been asked to talk about virtual etiquette, and I'll be sharing with you a PowerPoint in a moment that goes over that and hopefully impart upon you some tips that will allow you to better communicate with your students, if you are faculty or staff, or with your faculty member. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Now I'm going to put this in slide mode so that we can all see this together as we work through this, or at least speak through this process. And as we do go through this, please feel free to, again, comment in the chat or any of those things as we work through this entire slide. So today's session is virtual etiquette, as I said a moment ago. So we're going to be navigating effective ways to communicate online. And again, my name is Desmond Lewis. I'm the Dean of College Readiness here at Houston Community College, as was stated a moment ago. And those of you who are not familiar with the College Readiness Division, we house areas that help prepare students for their college level courses in tandem with working with those college level courses to ensure that students receive the quality type of education that they need and move forward as quickly as possible. But when you come to college, I want you to think about something. I want each and every person here today to think about why you came to college. Now, college is a time to learn and grow. And what I mean by that is that when you step into any classroom, whether it's physical presence on an actual campus, or you're there in this version of fashion, which is more in the remote learning environment, you're going to come in to expand your understanding of things. Now, there are two different mindsets when you start thinking about that when you do step into these virtual environments or for more traditional environments. And that's either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. That fixed mindset is basically when a person steps into a situation and does not want to change and stands firm. Think about a child. Maybe you have children, maybe it was you as a child, brother, sister, or someone that you've seen before, maybe someone on television that just stands firm and doesn't want to leave and keeps doing the things that he or she wants to do. Or better yet, even if it's not a person you know, maybe a kid you saw at the grocery store who's just really, really, really acting out. That's that fixed mindset. I want candy. I want this. I'm not going to stop. Those individuals also resign themselves to certain ideas and ideals that may not necessarily lend them to the direction that they're trying to go into for their careers once you get to higher education institutions. In other words, they may say, I can't, I can't, I can't. The flip side of that is the growth mindset. And the growth mindset is basically looking at things as an expansive opportunity to do that, grow. And when you think about growth, I want you to think about you as where you are now, but then reflect as where you were a year before now. Whether you just transitioned out of a K-12 environment, high school, whether you are just coming back to college and you've been out for a while, or whether you've been consecutively moving forward, how have you changed? Now, when you think about growth, think about a tree. In what direction do trees grow? Now, I'm asking you this not for a response, it's more of a rhetorical question. Trees, most of us will say they grow up, but they also grow down, the roots. The stronger the roots, the higher you can grow up, the more branches you have there. And as you see in the picture that I have here, I might succeed next time. In other words, the growth that you're experiencing has to do with the changes that are around you. Now, I say all of that to say this. With the onset of the pandemic, the college and many other institutions shifted to a wholly remote online environment, which changed the way we operate as an institution, changes the way that students will end up being able to communicate with their faculty members or communicate with each other. With that in mind, I want you to think about this. What can you do to better ensure that you are learning when you're taking those classes in that online environment? Now, we all know that we all have a lot of things going on, right? And all of those things that are going on in that online environment, whereas in my division, prior to this change to move to the remote learning environment, my division didn't have classes online. So that change, I want you to think about this and listen very carefully to what I'm saying. It wasn't just for the students, but in many cases, it was also for your faculty and staff. They become acclimated to a new environment, the new normal, if you will. So as you are thinking about that, how do we present ourselves? How do we do things in this new environment? Think about that fancy restaurant the first time you went there. Which fork do you use? You know, how do I ask for something from the waiter? Some of these things may seem intuitive, but at other times, there's a learning curve. And it takes time to learn. And just like I said before, that growth mindset is an extremely important aspect of it. So when we did move to this learning environment online, in essence, what we've done is we've invited people into our homes. Like right now, none of you, as far as I know, have ever been to my house, but now you are here. You're in my home. This is my office at my house. The picture that you see a fragment of in the background is a painting of which sat in my garage for years until we went into this remote environment. Then I put it on my wall, a computer over here, the desks, the things that you see in the background. So when you're inviting someone into your home, I want you to keep this in mind too. They're doing the same to you. So in this virtual environment, you must keep in mind that when individuals are coming into your home, they're going to see a lot. They're going to see an aspect of you that otherwise, in that more traditional environment, you would not have been privy to in most cases, unless you had some type of off-campus relationship, friends that you make in class, something along those lines. But now people see things that they otherwise would not have seen, or hear things that they would not otherwise have heard. So they're coming into your personal space, so to speak. So when you think about when you were younger, some of you, your moms or dads may have told you use that inside voice, or a company is coming. Make sure that you are on your P's and Q's. Well, that's some of what's going to take place today in this conversation, but more so along the lines of the way you present yourself in the classroom. It's the same way you will be presenting yourself as you transition into your prospective careers or maybe into other institutions. In other words, you put your best foot forward for individuals to see you as you want to present yourself. Because remember, that first impression is a lasting impression. In this remote and learning environment, many of us see what you see on the screen. Some of you guys have Teams, use Zoom, Kaltura, and you have all these faces on the screen, right? All of these things, all these people talking, these backgrounds. That is, if you have your camera on. Most of you probably see like what Adam Carlson, that name at the bottom, just the name on the screen, everything else black. And you see maybe one person talking at a time. But it depends upon a lot of things, right? It depends upon the bandwidth. It depends upon the capacity the person has. It depends upon the technology that you're using. But still, this is what many of us see. But think about what you don't say, what you don't see when you are in these classes. See, this is what's on the screen, but right next to the screen, this is what people may be dealing with. Now, when I say people, I'm talking about students, faculty, and or staff, because this is the environment in which we've all found ourselves to be a part of. Now, since we're all in this remote environment and you're dealing with this, and I'm pretty much sure this little fella does not go to HCC, or maybe he does. School is changing a lot and people are starting school a little bit earlier. But seriously, how do you maintain a professional face? How do you maintain your professional composure when you're dealing with these things off screen? For right now, all you guys, I could be dealing with all kind of things off screen. Now I don't have a little small child sitting here with me eating as this picture depicts, but you get the idea. In other words, there are a lot of things going on. Besides this, this may be your scenario, or maybe someone else's scenario. We see the young lady with the daughter, or I'm assuming the young child, throwing the papers in the air, making all of this noise. And let's say, for instance, that's you sitting there and you're on your phone, you're trying to be in your class with just the audio on and trying to do your work. What do you do? How do you maintain that? Or you're that person on the right hand side, and it may not be children, it could be anything, brothers, sisters, just the specific environment that you're in with many different distractions. But these examples that I have here, again, you see a lot of kids going back and forth, but I don't want you to think it's just children. It could be anything. Noises in the environment around you. You know, you have ambulance. At my home, I'm in my office, right by my window in my office. Many a times during meetings, the individuals who cut the lawn show up at the most inopportune moments, and you hear all these noises, and people barely can hear what I'm saying. And that's a distraction. Another scenario is this: a person may be working or trying to do his or her work, or it could be a faculty or staff member trying to deliver content, but they are juggling all these things. If you look at that person in the far back, that young lady, maybe she's in school doing her work at the same time that that individual in the foreground, that older gentleman, is either doing his work in class or maybe trying to help you as a student within the class. In other words, there's a lot going on. So there are a few things that you need to think about and that you can do to help ensure, again, that what you have paid for in that class, you're getting from that class when you are working with your instructor or instructors throughout the semester using virtual etiquette. So, with so much taking place, you can do these first three things that I'm going to present with you today. And again, I'm not going to lie to you. Everything I'm telling you today is going to be common sense, but I'm going to add some stories and a few contextual points that may bring things a bit, give you a little bit more of a idea of how it could impact you within the courses that you're in. For example, respecting others, paying attention, and asking questions. Really simple concepts. But what does that actually mean? Now, I'm just going to give you a precursory, a general overview of this information, and then I'm going to go deeper into it with you. So, with that, respecting others, what does respect mean to you? How do you respect others in your classroom? How do you end up disrespecting people in your classroom? We're going to dive into that just a little bit in a moment. And the paying attention. Well, right now, how many of you, let me ask you this, okay, your cameras are on. How many of you are actually listening to what I'm saying? How many of you have something else playing in the background? How many people I'm trying to do this, that, and the third? Well, trying to divide your attention doesn't really work as well as opposed to focusing. Now, when you focus your attention, there's a couple of things that you can do to keep yourself engaged and active. And one of those things you can do is asking questions. So when you go to class and when you think about school, it's a teaching and learning paradigm. So that teaching and learning, you're someone's teaching, you're learning, and then this is something you may not think about. You may be teaching something and they may be learning, but by being active and engaged, you become an active participant. When students come to my classes, when they step in, no matter what their ages are, they're adults, and I treat them as such. And as an adult, I expect certain things. Now I'm there to mentor, coach, and walk you up this tiered ladder to be where you want to be. But at the same time, I have certain expectations and I communicate those. That's the beginning of that respecting others. Now, when I sit here and say respecting others, think about your instructors. When you first meet them, and you need to be sure to call your instructor by their appropriate title, whether it's doctor, professor, whatever it may be. Now, in my case, I don't care. My name is Desmond Lewis. I don't care if students call me Desmond, whatever. And I was just saying that to some of the presenters beforehand. That's just me. I'm not the norm. So I wouldn't suggest you do that with your instructors and walking up to them and calling them, hey, whatever their first name is. It's going to be very disrespectful and it's going to set a tone within that course that may not be conducive to that learning environment. And when I say that, I mean when you're in this virtual environment. And I've seen students do this before. Not in my class, I've observed other classes, and individuals take offense to it. So make sure, when in doubt, you can call them Professor so and so or whatever the names, last name would be, unless the instructor has told you it's okay to call them something else. Like me, I tell my students all the time, you can call me Desmond, Dr. Lewis, or what you see. And this is a joke before I say it. You can call me Mr. Beautiful. Just look at me. And I will make that joke. And over the years, people just kept going with it and they understood that was a means by which of showing that my way of communicating with students and in-person or virtual environment is a little bit different. But as a general rule, again, make sure you know your instructor's appropriate title and you call them as such. A good place to start with that would be their syllabi. When you access those syllabi on the Learning Web or through Canvas, look to see whatever their name, how they're being referenced there. And that's how you want to reference them if you're asking them questions. Here are some ground rules when you're in any course. One, when you enter in a course, rename your image. Whatever your name is. Now, in this case, some of you may use your proper name, whereas others may have some nickname. If your name is William and then people normally call you Bill, you may want to let your instructor know. And when you put your name on the screen, put it in parentheses, Bill, William, Bill, and let your instructor know that you would prefer to be called that. Now, also, individuals may have names that may be not as easily understood. There may be names that are not as common. So just be aware that sometimes it may necessitate you verbalizing whatever your name is to your instructor. When you have questions, as a general rule, raise your hand using the various features, whether you're in WebEx, Zoom, or whatever it may be, whatever those features that are available within the platform that you're using within the virtual environment. Now, how does this translate into the workforce? How does this translate if you were working in a job or if you were trying to interview? Well, it depends upon the way that things are going back and forth between you and either your coworkers and or your potential, employer. That you may not need to go through all of the raise your hand features. It may be just some other points that I'll make up, not make up, I'm sorry, that I will cover in a moment. One of the things when you're in class, and I don't see students use this as much, but last semester I did see students start to ramp it up. Use the chat feature. Okay? In the chat, you could ask questions, and I would, if I were you, before class, whatever questions that you have, type those questions beforehand. And when the time is appropriate, paste it in the chat, copy paste. So you're not sitting there typing back and forth. Your instructor could then either verbalize the answer or he or she may type it in the chat, depending upon how the class is moving back and forth. But at that point, you have a record. And what I mean by you have a record of it, you can go back and reread whatever the response is. And in most, if not all of your courses, the recordings should be made available to you. And you can go back and look at that information and access it afterwards. So think about using that chat feature in addition. And when possible, cut your camera on. Okay? Cut your camera on, especially if you're going in breakout groups, and minimize the background distractions as much as you can. In other words, don't go to a place where your brother is trying to become the next DJ Screw, where he's playing some loud music in the background, or someone's playing video games or whatever it may be. It's as best as you can. Go to a place where you're not distracted from what's taking place. Because remember, I said earlier, you must pay attention. Keep your microphone off unless you need to speak. That's something you need to pay close attention to. I've been in many of these sessions and many classes where individuals accidentally left their mics on and you begin to hear things you don't need to hear. Remember, as I said earlier, you're inviting someone into your home. You're inviting someone into your private space. So be mindful of that. And when you do, log on, make sure that that microphone is muted until you need to speak. And when you finish speaking, mute it again. Be mindful and learn that mindfulness as you work through those processes. And keep your camera on if appropriate. Now, that means dressing appropriate. I've seen over the last year individuals in which things were not as appropriate as they should be. And what I mean by that, someone in pajamas, that if you're in a class, dress appropriately. As a professional, you've already started that when you signed up for college. So when you show up, the image that you're portraying to your faculty member is the same image that you should be able to carry through your entire college career. Now, when I'm saying that is that you're practicing and you're modeling the way that you're going to dress, speak, and act at all times. So dress appropriately and also make sure that you're not doing inappropriate things. Like, for example, um, you may be a person who vapes or whatever, or smoke or drink. You don't have those things out. People don't need to see that much of your private life. I'm not saying and passing judgment on anything. I'm just saying that when you are presenting your professional self, that's what you are presenting. They don't need to know all of the whole you. They need to know that professional aspect of you in the class, and that same level of professionalism will be reciprocated. For example, you see that I have a suit on. This entire pandemic, every meeting that I've gone to, every day that I go to work, I wear a suit. Now, some people may say, do you have a suit on from the waist up? No, I have an entire suit on every single day because I don't want to break the level of professionalism that I want individuals to express towards me by me disrespecting them in some way, form, or fashion. That's not saying you need to dress up in a suit and go to your class. What I'm saying is that just make sure that you're wearing appropriate clothing when you are on screen and the camera's on. And if you're not, then just don't cut the camera on. Let's see here. Let me continue with this. Now, make sure that when you're communicating with your instructor, whomever it may be, if you're doing something in synchronous, that means like we're doing right now, face to face, that you use the correct greeting. Like I said, when I came on here today, it's like, hello, everyone, blah, 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 blah. So you can type that in the chat. You don't need to necessarily verbalize that, but make sure that you are clear in your communication and the way that you're speaking is loud enough and is close enough to the microphone so that individuals can hear you as you enunciate whatever you're trying to communicate to them. If you're using asynchronous, that means the traditional online environment where the instructor's not there face to face. Make sure you use the correct salutation. Good evening, good morning, hello, whatever it may be, dear professor, whatever it may be. In that clear communication, that's the beginning that sets the tone when you're in this virtual environment of how well things will go. Because remember, intentions are one thing, but the impact of what you do, how people feel, it's going to be the long-lasting aspect of it. For example, if you accidentally typed in all caps, since you're dealing with different generations, an individual with a certain generation will say, this person is yelling at me. And if they feel as though you're raising your voice at them, how are you going to reciprocate? How are you going to react back to that? So be careful, again, when you're communicating with individuals online, especially if you're typing, and even when you're speaking. Make sure, again, that you're speaking loud enough and clear enough for individuals to understand exactly what you're trying to get across. In addition, read what you intend to write objectively. So, how many times have you written a text and you sent that text out, and that text you went back and reread it and said, man, oh boy, this doesn't really, okay, I can see how a person could take this the wrong way. The same thing happens in the chat, discussion boards, and emails. Think about what you want to actually say and just say that. The emotions that a person may put into things, that's best left for the conversation aspect of it when you're able to actually verbalize, because there's a less of a chance for misinterpretation of whatever the intended meaning is. Otherwise, an individual may take the points that you're trying to get across to them and in earnest and misinterpret them. And the next thing you know, your discussion board is filled with a bunch of things that shouldn't be said. And it all starts off from just a misinterpretation of something that you meant to move forward. Now, in doubt, when you're in doubt of whether what you're about to place in the chat or whatever it may be, just take back for a couple of seconds and look at it for something you're putting in the chat. For a discussion board, you may want to run that by someone if you're unclear, someone that you trust, family member, friend, like, how do you interpret this? And those things, again, is a means by which for you to remain within that growth mindset, remain within that moment of growing into your professional selves as you are going through your within the virtual environment, as you're going through the coursework to achieve whatever goals you've set for yourself. Never make inappropriate or offensive comments. Now, let's say this: people feel the way that they feel, and things go on in life every single day. You need to filter yourself. Although we are on the internet, and I'm going to get to that point in a moment, you don't have the anonymity to say things and no one doesn't know it's you. Remember, you are going to college, and as a college student, there are certain expectations that you must meet as you are now a representative of Houston Community College. Wherever you go from this point forward, you are a part of this institution. As a part of this institution, you have a level of responsibility and accountability that you will be held to. In other words, you're intelligent, you're smart, you are an individual whom of which has decided to continue with their education, and now you're an academic. So the expectations are higher. So in other words, if it's something that you would not say face to face to a person, don't say it online. You know, there are many times we feel different things. I see things, I feel things all the time. But as anyone who knows me, they'll tell you, I pretty much keep the same face. I pretty much keep the same tone, and I try to keep things straight. It's not easy all the time because we feel certain things. We're emotional beings. But as, again, an academic, this is your professional self. The things that you may want to say from an emotional stance, don't. Don't say anything that someone will take the wrong way, or maybe you intended it to be taken the wrong way. Don't do that because the repercussions aren't worth it. They're not worth it. Today we call people by the pronouns that they want to be called, and that's if they have uh, what she, her, hers, then you use those pronouns for that individual, whatever they may be. In other words, you treat people the same way that you want to be treated. Remember, I said earlier, the first point I said, respect others. This is extremely important. Now, I have 5 kids and 2 grandkids. And with all of my kids, my youngest, she's about to turn 18. My oldest, he's almost 30. And I have 2 grandkids. So sometimes when I'm talking to them, these are different generations, and I'm of a different generation. So sometimes I assume they see the world the way that I see it. We don't. We see the world differently. And if we look at that image that I have on the screen, when you're in person, using sarcasm and wit is acceptable. In some face-to-face conversations, it may be kind of funny. You think it's humorous, but that can hurt a person and be easily misinterpreted online. And then after you've said it, after you've written those things online, whatever they may be, in that moment, it sounds really funny, but it's not. So keep in mind that people aren't going to see things the exact same way that you see them. I'll give you an example. Music. Someone may say, and I hear a lot of people talk about old school rappers, Biggie, Tupac. Well, that they may go back and forth and people may make jokes about them. Well, one generation would be offended by that. And then a person compares that to more up-to-date or more contemporary rappers. So let's say Don Tolliver or Drake or whomever it may be. And individuals may make jokes about those groups. And it may be funny in person amongst a certain group, but that group of individuals who looks at it a different way from this group would then be offended. And those offenses, remember what I said earlier, your intention is one thing, but the impact that you make, the way you make people feel, that's the thing that's long lasting. And that can hurt relationships. virtually and in person. Because remember, you don't know who you're in class with. You don't know how these individuals can and will impact your life moving forward. Remember, your instructors are the individuals you'll come back to for letters of recommendation. In fact, during convocation, I had one of my students come back and he spoke about how after a few years, he was ready to transition to his law school and he needed letters of recommendation. And he came back to me. And I remembered the young man, very, very respectful individual, communicated clearly, followed all the things that I'm saying here. And I gave him that letter of recommendation without hesitation. In other words, you don't know who can be helpful to help you, but the impact that you make today will determine those relationships afterwards. Emoticons and emojis are also they're acceptable to use to convey certain feelings. Remember, in these different platforms, like when WebEx now, we may not have an emoticon and emoji here at this particular variant of the WebEx platform, but in others, you have all these different icons. I was in one today where there was a heart icon, a question mark, whatever it may be, the smiling face, the happy face. This is okay to use to a certain extent within the academic realm, but again, in that chat feature, because it's quick for a person to sit over for affirmation of whatever they're doing, be saying great job, happy face, or whatever it may be. Use those because it will help to quickly give a visual depiction of what you are feeling at that moment or interpreting if you're not able to fully express it in the way that you would like to. So I see that Dr. Christmas just put inside of the chat. So you have a colon with a paren, which it looks like a smiley face. Thinking about those things really impacts the instrument. If you were presenting in a class, you like that. You like for people to clap. You like for people to say, "I get you. I understand where you're coming from." The virtual environment again is teaching and learning. Your instructors don't know everything. They know way more than you in that subject matter, but they don't know everything, and neither do you. So with that being said, to help instructors, to help faculty, to help each other within the class, I can tell you this with 100% certainty. The majority who are students, you learn the person next to you at times than the instructor in front of you. Why? Because they're able to communicate more effectively. They're speaking your language. So does that mean you just talk to them to learn? No, you need to learn this other language too. Respecting other people's privacy. Oh man, the virtual environment gives us to mishaps, mistakes. You never share people's personal contact information without permission. How do you know they want you to give everyone that number? Because now it's open on there, or their Instagram page, or whatever. However you're communicating with individuals, you should always use just your HCC email account instead of a personal email account. And I know some of you students say, well, I don't go to it. Well, you're developing your professional self. Okay? That personal email account, let's underscore personal. Personal. As I said earlier, you're inviting people into your home, but you need to let them see your professional aspects of yourself. You can develop a personal relationship later if that happens, but at this juncture, I don't want to know about when I go to a place what certain individuals are into if I'm going to that place to ask them for help for certain things. For example, if I need a police officer, I'm not asking, do you like volleyball? No, I need help. I need your professional self to be there. So in this case, the building of your professional self is your HCC email. It also has a level of security that allows you to continue with that privacy that wouldn't be so easily broken through with the firewalls. Now, don't get me wrong, things happen, but you are part of a larger structure. What did I say earlier? You are now part of the HCC family. You are no less important than any employee at this college. And I would even argue you are more so important because you are here and we are here for you. I think we forget this all the time. The internet is open to everybody. So when you say something, now I want you all to listen very close to me about this virtual etiquette. Whether it's an Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you're on, that stays with you forever. When you say things that and you post things, whether it's on YouTube, that's forever. When you apply to jobs, individuals will be able to see those things. When you're saying things in courses, if it's disruptive enough, people take screenshots. That's forever. When you go to these public online forums, you need to be sure and clear that you are presenting your professional selves that won't come back later to haunt you, because you could put yourself and other people at risk. In other words, if you're saying so and so is, we're in class right now, you taking and put some personal information or image there, you don't know that person's situation. And now someone knows something about someone that they should not have. And I'll use an example of, and again, this is a real farcical and fictional example. Takashi 69. Well, we all know who he is. He's a public figure. He's out there running around. But we also know that this individual's safety is a risk factor based upon the way certain people see him. So, say for instance, I'm taking a picture and he's in my class, and I'm saying he's here with me every Tuesday and Wednesday. And if something happens to that person, well, hey, you may have contributed to that individual having issues. Now, I'm not saying that's, again, that's a real far-fetched situation. What I'm trying to impart upon you is that the internet is a wide open space. The level of anonymity and the things you think people don't see, they see. So be careful of the images. If you are saying years from now, well, I want to be, I'm working to become whatever it is, and then there's an image of you that's stark contrast, just sit back and say, well, that was me then, this is me now. That may be true, but think about the impact. It's not about the intention, it's about how you make people feel. Follow the rules. HEC's Student Code of Conduct provides guidelines of acceptable and unacceptable behavior at the college. Also, in each one of your classes, there's in your syllabus that rules that must be followed in the course. So when you're virtually in these classes, whether it's on campus or whatever it may be, the expectation is that you will work with and follow whatever the structure is for that course. And you can refer to the student handbook, and you can find that online. So that student handbook will tell you every single rule and your rights and the instructor's rights. And you need to keep that in mind as you do work through these different courses that you're working through to maintain that professional etiquette and maintain that level of communication. And I'm going to answer some of those questions in chat in a moment, as soon as I finish this last slide. Forgive and forget, let it go. I know that's a corny picture at the bottom, and I even asked my administrative assistant, should I put that on here? I've never even seen Frozen. But if you're in a situation where a comment is made that you find to be offensive, bring it to the attention of your instructor and to take the appropriate actions. Now, let me tell you what you do if the instructor doesn't do anything. You get in touch with the dean. If the dean doesn't do anything, you get in touch with the associate vice chancellor. If the associate vice chancellor doesn't do anything, you get in touch with the vice chancellor. It's a hierarchy. So try for the instructor to see if he or she, I'm sorry, I skipped before the dean, the instructor, then the chair. I'll go back through that order again. Instructor, chair, dean, associate vice chancellor, chancellor at the top. Now, I know many of you say, well, I'm just going to go to the top. That's not the process. If you work, because that process, you go to the top, they're going to send you back down to the chair. And the chair should be able to work with the instructor if the instructor has not done anything at that point. Because you should never engage in disruptive discourse or verbal exchanges that would detract from the learning. In other words, if someone else is acting in a way that's not becoming, that doesn't mean that you should do the same. So that's why I said, let it go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing at this time and open it up for whatever questions that you may have. Let me look in the chat. I know I saw something over here. Okay. What do you do if our HEC professional email account will expire and will no longer attend? I sometimes want to use my HEC email when I apply for other tuition, but I'm afraid I'll lose the information when I no longer attend HEC. Well, what I'll say about this, Jesus, is that one of the things that I have told students to do, I know if you're an employee, that account stays forever. I'm not sure about if you're a student, if it remains afterwards. But we can check into that. So I would ask Professor Franklin if she could check into that to see if that account remains open afterwards. But if it doesn't, this is what I would do, Jesus. I would put my name, jesus.canales@gmail. Using your name as that email is going to be extremely, extremely impactful as you move further out in regard to your professional self. So if it's not, if someone else has that same last name and first name, then you may want to put whatever number behind that or whatever it is. But you shouldn't use names, nicknames or pseudonyms that aren't professional. By doing that, it takes you out of the light of the professional persona that you are building for others to see. So I don't know if there are any other questions from anyone else. If there are, please feel free to go ahead and place them in the chat. I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself. If you are, you can feel free to do so. Okay, is this seminar, you can't unmute? Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Okay, will the seminar be recorded? That's a good question. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
the
I
seminar
would
will
have
be
to ask.
recorded. It is being recorded.
Okay, all right, so you should have access to the recording afterwards. Yeah, okay, let's see, anything else? Any other questions? And feel free to type them in the chat.
There's one
And
that
while
says, tell me
you're,
about a time when your mood altered your performance positively or negatively.
well, to be honest with you, that might be, I'm not the best person for that because I'm pretty much even keeled. To give you some background on me, I came from law enforcement. So I seldom, if ever, lose my temper or I kind of change from this professional stance. But what I would think is that when you're dealing with challenging situations, to always don't take things personal when you're in a class. Let me tell you why. What's the first thing that happens when you were younger um, when individuals attempted to maybe pick on you or say something about you, the first thing you would say is that they don't know me. They don't know me. Well, people don't know you unless you presented your personal self to them. So you don't take things personal in that way. Now, it's easier said than done, but that's basically what I do all the time. I keep myself in a professional mindset because okay, what do people actually know about me? And I'll give you guys a little bit of personal information. I'm in the music industry. So someone may say, well, what do you know about this Don Tolliver, this and that? Well, I talk to these people all the time. Not Don Tolliver, but many other major label artists. I'm deeply in the music industry where a person may make assumptions based upon the way I look and my age and so forth and so on. So again, don't personalize things that people don't know anything personal about you. So there's really no time that that's the way I would deal with it, but there's no time that I've ever had that situation based upon my own personal disposition. Okay, and I see there's Al Ibrahim. Okay, Kareem. Okay. Anyone else? Let's see. Are there any further questions from anyone? Okay. Well, let's see. If you also have an issue or problem, you can address them. Okay, with the student government, yes, and they will guide you. That is, Jesus, you're 100% correct. Your student government is there to help you with those issues that pop up that you don't know how to navigate. But remember, you also have faculty who were there too, and the administration at the college. And I will tell you this, if you have any problems, reach out to me. Like I said, I'm Desmond Lewis. All you do is reach out to me, students. I help students every single day. The college, that's what we're here for, to help you get to the points that you want to get to. And when I came to college, I'm 47. So when I came to college, I became a professor at 22. I was basically a kid teaching classes, so I learned a lot, in 1996 about teaching that I bring to today and understand it because at that time I literally felt like a student, but I was teaching courses as a full-time professor, which is almost unheard of. Okay, how can you make a good impression with English? Okay. The thing is, don't worry about your English being a second language or maybe a heavy accent. The thing is, you try. Your instructors will understand that. You type inside of the chat as much as you can. And one thing you can also do is, I know many students because I've taught ESL and I teach a lot of students who are multilingual and come from different cultures. And when I teach those students, and I know especially with some of my students from, and this is my personal experience, from some Asian countries, they are hesitant to speak out because cultural differences, and maybe they feel as though their accents. Remember what I'm about to say, okay, Camilla, is that your impression and your voice, that's you. Nothing about you should sit back and worry about. You're developing. That's what you're in the college for, to develop your ability to communicate effectively. You're going to have some stumbles here or there, but that's what we're here for. It doesn't matter if the students around you or someone else is saying, well, okay, I don't understand. Yeah, individuals may have heavy accents at times. I speak really quickly. I know that. And I have to consciously slow myself down. So I would maybe, if you have feel as though you have a limited vocabulary, use that translator, and then you can begin to use that to speak to your faculty members that way. And I see there's one question that says here, let me see here, what is this? Um, I barely can see this question because I was looking at the other chat. Let's see. Okay, in case I have a negative photo on my social media from years, fine. Well, okay, what you can do now is you can petition whatever that social media is for that to be removed. Okay, so you need to contact that, whether it's Facebook, whatever it may be, for that picture, that photograph, that comment, those things to be removed. There's also a means by which where you can work with different companies to bury that information so those things aren't on the first 3 or 4 pages when potential employers or individuals are looking for you. So it's not to hide things, it's basically for you to put your best foot forward. The more professional aspects of your being, you begin to put more and more at the forefront of your searches. So if you search Desmond Lewis HCC, all you're going to see is things about HCC. I came from Texas Southern. It's not as much there. So how do you reject one of your team members' ideas or opinions for a project? Respectfully. So if a person has an idea that's coming forward, you try to figure out a win-win situation. If you have a structure or something that's there, see how you can integrate what that person is saying and or doing to work within the framework that you think will work for the class. In other words, you redirect it. Remember, understand what I'm about to say. It's not always going to be 100%. Everyone is not going to always get along. However, what you can do is begin to develop means by which to meet people as closest to where they are. And then you can shift gears and put them in the driver's seat for aspects of that project. So if I had a project and you have 3 or 4 different areas of it, you give that person a component of that project and let them do as they will. And then you as the lead, maybe you bring that in and you integrate it into the overall structure so they don't feel left out. Okay, so okay, let me see. If a person's reaching out for help, but then, okay, well, if you are in a situation where individuals are, if you feel as though you are being taken advantage of, what I would do, respectfully, I would inform the instructor, and have a conversation with the instructor about that individual's lack of being able to interpret whatever the course is, whatever the course and how the course is moving. The instructor has resources to begin to meet that student wherever he or she is, whether it's using advising, counseling, additional work, because there may be circumstances that that student or classmate may be going through that, again, you are not equipped as a classmate to deal with, but the instructor is there to assist with those challenging moments that that student is having. So when you think about that, if you are in a situation where an individual is seemingly being, well, for lack of better terms, a bit extra with their neediness for you at that moment, reach out to the instructor. Just tell them, because let me tell you this: when you're speaking to an instructor, there's it's almost like an attorney client privilege. They're not going to come back and make that overall classroom saying, student X said this, so we need to do that. No, they're going to try to bring it in and how to address it in a generalized fashion that may meet the needs of that student. Again, your faculty members are all experts, subject matter experts, and most of them have had extensive experience with dealing with the issues that you may, as a student, just be now dealing with. Okay, so I don't know if that's all of the questions, and hopefully I've addressed everything that everyone needs. I'm not sure if there is anything else you need me to do, Professor Franklin.
No, that is it. I want to thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity for us all to learn, both students as well as faculty. And I can tell you a couple of takeaways that I have, and I'm doing something that you said we should do. I forgot to turn on my camera. Please forgive me. So, a couple of my takeaways was developing your personal self and dressing the part. And I mean, as long as I've known you, yes, you have always dressed the part, no matter what the occasion, you have always been suited up. So, thank you for your professionalism as well as this opportunity for us to learn from you. Um, for Jesus, I believe your question regarding how long you have access to HCC's email. I believe it's 4 to 6 months after you graduate, and then after the 6 month, it turns or shuts off. But let me find out for sure, and what I will do is I will email you the answer to that. But I believe it's 4 to 6 months. Students, after you graduate, you will have access to your HCC email. Okay. A couple of things or announcements that I would like to share before we leave. Again, like I said, my name is Tambela Franklin, and I am one of the career specialists with HCC. And so, HCC, we're having our first ever Career Week. We're very excited about that. Career Week starts on Tuesday, April the 6th, and it's going to run all the way through Thursday, April the 8th. And we would love for you all, I'm going to put in the chat the registration link where you all can go in and register for our workshops that's going to be held throughout that week. And just to give you a little bit of information, Tuesday we will have soft skills, the wow factor for your hard work. Someone from the Generation Company will be presenting on that. Wednesday, April the 7th, we have First Impressions, Speaking and Dressing the Part. That will be presented by Tracy Simmons with Dress for Success Houston. Wednesday, April the 7th, we have LinkedIn with Tesla. We have Tesla recruiters, Gabrielle Jolly and Caitlin Walsham will present to our students. And then wrapping up on Thursday, April the 8th from 12 to 1 p.m., we have the virtual interview, Sharpening Your Virtual Interview Skills. That will be hosted by a representative from our Workforce Solutions. And as I mentioned, I will go ahead and put this information in the chat so that you all, if you're interested, and we encourage our students, please register for all of our career services upcoming events. Now I would like to go ahead and hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Crispin, for closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you for all this useful information. Dr. Lewis, I really appreciated your emphasis on respecting the privacy of your classmates and colleagues. A lot of times people forget how important that is. So this event will be available for playback via our Student Life YouTube channel. All attendees who stayed for the entire event will be placed in a raffle, and 3 $25 gift cards will be awarded to the winners. Please be on the lookout for an email that says you are a winner in your student email. If you're attending this event for Eagle Points will be awarded within 2 business days of this event. Join us again Tuesday, April 6th, when Career Services presents Getting. I hope you signed up for all of the events when you signed up for this one, but just in case you didn't, I'm putting the link in the chat. Thank you, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you all, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys have a nice day.